if Boris wants to come and join us, I mean, as you know, I'm a big fan and friend of Boris. I'd love for that to happen.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening.
I'll come on to your departure and what's behind it in a moment. But I just wonder, when you look at Rishi Sunak there, standing on the site of the Titanic, he was in the pouring rain launching his election campaign. Rwanda flights are not taking off before the election. Smoke is not being banned, even though he mentioned it on the steps of Number 10. I just wonder whether this election campaign is really going the way you want it to.
Well, firstly, I actually think it's actually rude to the people of Belfast to say that or associate such bad things with the now thriving Titanic quarter that has hundreds, thousands of people employed in it. The brilliant business we visited today, Artemis, who are at the head of green technology, essentially producing a boat and soon to be a ferry that reduces emissions and fuel use by 80%. And so, yeah, I suppose it's the way anybody might want to spin it. But no, we are moving forward, and we've got a prime minister who's got a bold plan, compared with a leader of the opposition who has no plan. So I'm quite looking forward to this election campaign.
Do you understand though why he's called it now? I mean, were you sort of privy to those conversations?
No, I wasn't privy to the conversations. I mean, they're there for the prime minister and the prime minister alone. Since we removed ourselves from the Fixed Term Parliament Act, it is left with the prime minister and his advisors, and they chose this date.
And you understand that?
Yeah, I can understand it. I personally would have preferred a later date. I'd literally only just announced that I was standing down from Parliament myself, and I did that at that particular time because I actually wanted my association to have a much wider choice than they're now going to get, because we've reverted in the Conservative Party to essentially by-election rules for appointing candidates.
Right. So he's dumped a few people in it then, hasn't he?
Well,
Going
no.
earlier
I
in
mean,
the autumn.
We did know there was a general election coming. You know, it had to be by the 25th of January next year. Normally, in a five-term, well, up to 5 years, you can have for a term, and most elections pre the Fixed Term Parliament Act came well either before or in the fourth year. So,
but would you have liked
anything
longer?
Extraordinary.
Would you have liked longer to say your goodbyes and help, as you say, help your constituency association pick a successor?
Yeah, but that's self-indulgent of me. I think if the prime minister thinks this is best for the country, there's a choice now, a real choice for people that they've got to make with a Labour Party that's going to do nothing. It's going to go backwards on our Rwanda plan. That's going to have an amnesty essentially for people coming to this country, make this country a draw for illegal migration. We have a plan to do that, and people should have that choice put before them.
Right. I mean, the thing is, you're a senior cabinet minister. You're a young man. You're in your 50s. I call that young because I'm turning 50 this year. You've got a 25,000 majority. If you're giving up, why should people believe in your party?
Well, I mean, the average length for someone. So I've served in public office now for 24 years, and I used to wholesale fruit and veg for a living before this. I'd like to think I want to see what's out there for me, and I didn't really want to become institutionalized, just be a parliamentarian for the whole of my life. So I made a personal choice, which took a long time in coming to. It just happened to come to fruition in the last few weeks for me. But I think the average length of a parliamentarian is between 15 and 18 years, and lots of the people who are standing down now have done their fair share.
And I assume you're not going to go back to selling fruit and veg. You'll try and make some money, will you?
I honestly haven't got a plan. I was hoping I'd have the summer to think about what I was going to do next. So, well, I've still got the summer, but I'll be thinking about it in a very different way.
You haven't got a plan, but we know that the Prime Minister says he has got a plan.
The Prime Minister does.
Yep,
absolutely.
You line that one up for
me.
Thank
you. I know, and you walked right in, so I appreciate that, Kathy.
But I mean, you're going to need all the help you can get, really, aren't you, to sell that plan on the campaign trail? Do you think Boris Johnson should be pressed back into action?
So we want every Conservative on the doorstep working to get Rishi Sunak back as Prime Minister. And yes, generally there is a very good plan for the country, and as we move forward in just about every single area, whether it be the triple lock for pensions, whether it be our action on Rwanda, whether it be the fact that the economy is now returning to normal and inflation rates back where they should be. There is a lot of positivity for us to go and sell on the doorstep.
Yep.
And if Boris wants to come and join us, I mean, as you know, I'm a big fan and friend of Boris. I'd love for that to happen.
Do you think he'd help move the dial?
Well, Boris always helps move the dial. I don't know which direction or which dial, but you know,
In a positive way.
Boris,
you were talking about
yeah,
positivity.
yeah. Boris is a legend on the doorstep, so yeah, I'm sure he would.
Right. Okay. You don't think it would be a sort of reminder to people of the chaos as Labour's painting it? That's their one of their campaign slogans is about not wanting to carry on with the chaos.
Well, Labour don't really have much to say at all. I mean, the only thing that Labour bring is negativity to any election campaign.
Yeah, but on the specific
and,
point about Boris Johnson and the chaos around him, you don't think him on the doorstep will remind people?
I think Labour are not keen to encounter many Conservatives on the doorstep, let alone Boris Johnson.
Okay. What about former Brexit Minister Lord Frost? Should he be allowed to stand as a Conservative candidate? I mean, if he resigned from the Lords, of course.
Yeah, but I've heard. So I've only heard a snippet about the story that I think you're alluding to. But I think Lord Frost. I did check on this before I agreed to come on the show, and I believe he could have easily been a candidate for the 4th of July. So I'm not particularly sure where this story is from.
So would you like to see him being a candidate?
Right. See, this is where I think. I mean, one, yes, but actually, you've got to go through a process to be a candidate, and that includes lovely associations like the members of Daventry, who will be choosing their next candidate in a week's time to hopefully replace me.
But you know, people can be parachuted
so you don't
in
just
at the
walk
last
into
minute.
these things.
Yeah,
no,
but
you
favoured people can be just parachuted in. We all know that.
Well, but so as I mentioned at the very top beginning of the interview, that we are now in what essentially are by-election rules for my party. So yes, you get really shortened shortlists presented to constituency associations. So and that's why I wanted to go with hopefully a few months before an election, so my association would have a larger choice. But you know, these are rules that have been long-standing in the Conservative Party, and everybody understands them.
Just to circle back to where we began this interview, the sort of comms issues that perhaps the Prime Minister has had with launching his campaign in the pouring rain, speaking, you know, I know you said it was insulting to the people of Belfast, but some have raised eyebrows at the location for today's speech where the Titanic was built. Do you think his heart is in this campaign, or is he slightly checked out?
Oh, I mean, I can tell you, I saw it myself this morning. He's absolutely, his heart's in this campaign, and he's got tons of energy, and he was superb this morning. And actually, you know, I was so pleased that he came to Northern Ireland. One of the other questions was, you know, the Conservatives don't get many votes in Northern Ireland. We don't stand many candidates, but we are a party of the whole union, and the Prime Minister taking the time to come to Northern Ireland at the beginning of the campaign to demonstrate that was a really powerful voice, positive thing for the union of the United Kingdom, and he really was full of energy, full of beans, and ready to go.
You don't think his heart's in California already?
No, I really don't.
You're talking there about Northern Ireland and politics there. I mean, there'd been nearly 4 months of political stability since the devolved government there was restored. There are some who worry that having called the election, you've thrown all that into flux.
Yeah, so I disagree with that as well. I mean, there's been plenty of things that have come to test the new executive here in Northern Ireland. But Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister, Emma Pengelly, the Deputy First Minister, have been working really, really well together. Really maturely, respectful friendship that's built up between the two of them is obvious to everybody that sees them together. And I'm quite sure there'll be members of Stormont who will want to stand for Parliament, and maybe even ministers will step aside to try and stand for Parliament. But that is part of the normal politics, or should be part of the normal politics of a devolved administration for Northern Ireland.
And just finally, I'm going to be speaking to Craig McKinley, your Conservative colleague, who lost his limbs to sepsis. I'm going to be speaking to him in just a moment. Do you think he should get a peerage?
Well, that's definitely not down to me, but that man is a walking miracle. And because of him, I have been to Superdrug and had my sepsis jab, which I would recommend to everyone. You have to pay for it. You can get it free if you're over 65. But I had a neighbor, a near neighbor of mine, who also actually passed away from sepsis only a few weeks ago. And the particular sepsis jab I had protects me from 22 of the 42 types of sepsis, I think it is. So, and Craig is one of Craig's many campaigns, and I'm sure he'll still be a campaigner. And actually, maybe the House of Lords is a great place for him to do this sort of campaigning, is to make sure more people are aware of the sepsis jabs available.